Welcome to The Wing, the emotional and financial health check you never knew you needed. We provide tangible solutions for young women to build emotional health and wealth on their journey from school to motherhood. This is the podcast for young women in Australia navigating the big stuff: life, money, and motherhood. From high school to first homes, babies to bank accounts, we take you on an interactive listening journey that helps you make smart, empowered decisions every step of the way.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to another episode of The Wing. We have our returning resident guest, Ashleigh Kuhn. Good morning, Ash.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure to have you and to chat to you and to pick your brain and talk about real topics. We're getting a lot of good feedback from our conversations with Ash. And today we're going to cover a pretty interesting one. It's slightly off the nutrition route and more of a candid chat, probably more directed towards relationships. So I think this will resonate with a lot of our lady listeners. This post actually caught my attention I do reference Ash's Instagram page quite a bit, Nutrition by Ashleigh. But it's got this gorgeous, I think it's beautiful in this photo, Ash, and we'll get it up on one of the reels, I think. The text across the photo of Ash says, "I was a hot mess in my 20s, but a therapist taught me something that changed my life." It's obviously a very good headline. The therapist said to Ash, "When you find genuine love, you might mistake it for being boring." And then Ash wrote, "She was right." So let's start there, Ash, and then I'm going to flick through more of this post and we'll chat about it. But can you let's start by telling us a little bit about your experience in that first conversation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to this. Like, firstly, being a mess in your 20s where you're still kind of like figuring out who you are. But I know, like, certainly nearly every woman in their 30s that I speak to had a period, some type of period in their 20s where they were maybe in like a toxic relationship or like a situationship or something that kind of wasn't serving them. And I think often that can cause a lot of insecurity. And that's certainly how I felt. And I think that's really what I'm getting at when I say I was a hot mess, because I absolutely was. But I think a lot of that was fueled by, that uncertainty about who you are and probably not having, I guess, the boundaries in place that I have now. So we're willing to kind of take on probably a bit of disrespect or being treated poorly that we maybe, hopefully, wouldn't accept now. And so, that's basically why I was seeing this therapist. And this line has really stayed with me because I think it's really true. And if you're in a situation where, you have these like really low lows, like say you're in a relationship with someone who's making you feel really bad about yourself, whether that's their direct actions or the situation or whatever, it kind of makes any like high or pleasant moment feel like it's sky high, like it's amazing because your kind of baseline is like so low or your comparison point. And I think that's what she was really getting at. And I've certainly found that like when I met my husband, James, and I showed him this post when I was publishing it and I was like, "You're not boring." But it's more just like when you then experience stability, I guess in comparison to these really high highs and these really low lows, it can feel a lot more level. And really that's kind of what we want, but it's a bit of a shock to the system, I think, when you first encounter it.
And you're right, the word boring, like it sounds negative, but what you're saying is like it's the consistency piece, right? It's the not going through, the ups and downs, extreme highs, extreme lows. Like there seems to be nothing in between sometimes in the relationships when you are in your 20s. And yet, like you said, I'm sure a lot of women can relate and probably men can relate too when we do this self-reflection and actually speak to professionals in the area. Then they're able to zoom out and put shine a different lens on, or have a different lens on what these relationships are actually like in during your 20s, where still a lot of emotional, hormonal, developmental change is going on in your mind and in your body and in your life. And it's really difficult to navigate that at the time because you might be in a relationship and you just don't see it being necessarily a toxic one or something that isn't, you may notice the inconsistency, but it's until you're able to seek that in another relationship that you look back in hindsight and you think, oh, okay, what a contrast. And similar to you, like as I was reading this post of yours, I was thinking about my relationship with Jake as well. I'm like, we don't have extreme highs and we don't have extreme lows, but we're somewhere nicely in the middle, and it's pretty consistent. Like being able to communicate with one another in a reasonable format most of the time, and and build that, and but then not mistaking it for being boring. Like it's not, it's not boring. It's consistent and peaceful and calm. And I think it's what makes, good parents and, a long-term relationship stick. Something else that you said, Ash, in this post as well, applying that same theory to life. So the boring things, or the so-called boring things, stable love, simple routines, and nailing the basics. These are the big rocks and the foundation that actually move the needle. What's your view on those pieces?
I think a lot of the time we can be a little bit distracted by sort of like shiny things, or like sometimes if we're feeling like things are a bit too stable, we can go looking for like a bit of drama. And I think this is probably more common when you're a bit younger, a bit different after you become a parent. You're like, please, no drama. Like, I've had enough. But, we kind of look for like these thrills, and really, and certainly when we look at nutrition and when we look at fitness, the consistency and the routine is really what gets people results. And I feel like a really good example of this is sometimes I'll get people coming to me being like, oh, I've seen this magnesium hot chocolate supplement with collagen. Do you think this will help me with my sleep and stress? And it's like, maybe, but what time are you going to bed? Are you like doom scrolling till 1 a.m. and then like a collagen supplement or magnesium's not going to supplement that sleep that you're not getting? And same with stress. Like if you have this really full schedule and you're never taking any time for yourself, or you're not practicing any stress management techniques, it can't supplement that, right? Like those are the foundational things. And if you don't have those in place, you can go looking for anything that's like a quick fix or something fatty or something really exciting, but it's not going to be able to do the job that boring basic routine can do.
Looking for a quick fix, like you said, relating that to relationships too, is that, looking for a quick fix. Like, what is that? Okay, well, I'm going to go on a holiday, or we're going to have a break, or we're going to, like, whatever the thing is. If the foundation isn't there and it's not right from the beginning, then you've got every chance of everything just falling by the wayside, or you falling by the wayside and the relationship just not eventuating, and not having those stable rocks in your life. I think you taught me a lot of that, Ash, like during the nutrition coaching was, like I'm one of those people that will be like, oh, I think I need a vitamin B12 supplement. Do you think this is going to be good for stress? It's like, okay, well, let's talk about your life first and your routine and look at it holistically. Rather than trying to think this one thing. It's actually funny. The other day, Jake came home with like a whole handful of all these vitamins, which he will do on occasion. And I learned a little while ago that there's not a lot of point in just sort of stabbing in the dark, picking vitamins that you think you should have unless you're actually deficient in something. And I heard this from a GP, because if you start taking, so for example, like zinc or B12 or whatever the supplement is, but if you're not deficient in that particular vitamin, your body will just excrete it. So like it won't actually sink in to your system because your system has enough of whatever that particular supplement is. So it's more about going back that step before and going, okay, well, why am I seeking support in these supplements? Well, I'm trying to reduce stress, or I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to do whatever the things are, but there are more practical things that you can do. And a lot of it comes down to routine, right? Like, and you're big on that, like, but having, measures in place where you can track time and track energy and track, what you consume and what your output is, and and when you write it all down, it can sound boring. It can sound, oh, okay, well, if I just do those things every day, well, then that's a bit, boring. Like, where's the drama?
100%. I think it's not that sexy, like when you're like, well, get enough protein and get a good amount of fiber and appropriate amount of calories and try and get good sleep. People are like, oh, But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, no one's actually doing that, or very few people are. Like, you would be so surprised what you can sort of get away with in terms of lifestyle if you just meet like the minimum levels of physical activity, guidelines, recommended amount of fruit and veg, those things that are really like foundational and basic, where we sort of, you can almost overlook them because they're so simple. Like, another good example is, I've had people be like, what about walking with a weighted vest? Because this is something that's pretty big on social media at the moment. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Well, you're getting about a third of the steps that we spoke about just without a vest. So let's try, increasing your daily movement activity levels to that target, whatever it may be, and then let's assess whether you might benefit from anything extra. And it's hard because I get it. They're the kind of sparkly, sexy things where you're like, oh, this could be the thing that makes all the difference for me. And that's human nature. Like, we want a quick fix. We want that instant gratification. But it's empty. It's kind of like the supplements you were talking about. Like, if you don't need it, you're just going to have really expensive wee. Ultimately, it's not actually going to fix your problem. So it's tricky. And I think it also comes back to expectations too. Like, sometimes we expect things to be like fun and exciting and enjoyable when like routine and safety doesn't always feel that way. And like, coming back to relationships, I remember I initially really struggled with my husband because he's not like a big gestures, huge proclamations of love type person. And I was kind of like, like, I was looking at some of my friends, who had these partners being like, I need you to breathe, or like, all of these things like so intense. And James was just like so stable. And I think he was kind of like, well, I don't need to do that because of course I love you. Like, I'm showing you all the things, like I'm in this relationship with you. It wasn't like we didn't have these explosive arguments, which I thought, well, if you have heaps of passion in your relationship, then that's gonna, come out as like these big fights. And it's like, well, it's actually so nice not having big explosive arguments with your partner.
Oh, 100%. It's absolutely not necessary. Like, it's not. And it's a reflection on both of the individuals, in that situation. But yeah, when you strike about it, almost when things feel too easy, it feels like it's too good to be true. So then we go looking for the problem. And like you said, it's human nature. Like, why, we all do it, I think. Like, it is a trait where we're sort of like looking for problems to solve or looking for problems. And yeah, when you hit that stability and also learning about each other's love languages as well, like being aware of what how the other person likes to receive love and how you like to receive love might be two different ways. Like, someone might be really big on gift giving, another person might be really big on words of affirmation, like, and that is actually something to look into. If anybody is talking to a psychologist and you want to learn more about love languages, you can do that with them. I mean, you can also use Google and probably ChatGPT to work out what your love language actually is. But I think it's a really worthwhile conversation to have with your partner, because not only will you be able to recognize that in one another and then be able to communicate better and have that as a bit of a foundation in stability, you'll start to spot it in friends and family and colleagues and other people that are around you as well, which is a really useful tool. But yeah, like you said, it's sort of like you don't passion is shown in lots of different ways, and an explosive argument doesn't necessarily mean that we love each other. It might, but it doesn't have to be the foundation or the bedrock of a relationship if you don't want it to be. And if it's making you uncomfy or you're going on this roller coaster, then it's time to talk about these feelings and speak with a professional or go to couples counseling and go down that road to see, is this a relationship I should stay in? Is this really what I'm looking for? And like with your nutrition reference as well, like I remember my mindset used to be just run around the lake, run 5Ks as fast as you can, get as hot and sweaty as you can. That's how you're going to stay fit and healthy. And like, you don't need to worry too much about food because you burnt so many calories while you're exercising. That my mindset is not that anymore, thanks to you. But,
Love that.
but when you're like, I just watched how much adjusting my food intake, what that did for me at like in terms of weight, in terms of mindset, in terms of everything, like it completely shifted the scales, because it was like I'm looking for the drama. I want the hot run to like make me feel better about like being fit and well, and then just eat like kind of how I always eat. Doesn't really matter. Like I wouldn't even consider what vegetables I'd be having with dinner or whatever after that. Like I just, eat what's around. But yeah, it's funny once you shift that mindset and now I look at it differently in terms of, okay, well, what is the least dramatic way I can exercise? Especially through like pregnancy and postpartum, and you sort of like, oh, okay, a walk. A walk is good. Just start there. Leave the weight
Yeah.
home. Let's not worry about that. Let's just look for something that that's a repeatable behavior as well.
That
Something
you can do
you can
consistently, right? And it's so funny because especially when you look at training, like we're so happy to put ourselves in these like really uncomfortable positions and these really hard workouts. But like sitting in the discomfort of just having the inconvenience of needing to chip away at something and maybe feeling a bit bored with it, but having that I don't want to say discipline because that comes with some really negative associations, but just taking that action every day can feel really uncomfortable and inconvenient. And I think we need to maybe switch how we perceive that and recognize that can be really challenging too. It's actually probably going to get you better results than these like intense peaks of discomfort followed by not paying attention to everything else that's going on. I think you also said something that is really interesting when you're talking about relationships and getting to learn the other person's love language. You're kind of talking about putting in the work to that relationship, right? And I think sometimes we think that relationships don't need work. Like it should be easy and it should be, you just love each other and that's all you need. It's actually so funny. I had a tattoo that says love is all you need when I was like 18 and I got it covered up with something new because I like recently last like 2 years because I was like, it's not. Love is not all you need. You need respect and you need to put in the work and like it's hard. And people are often surprised to hear that James and I did marriage counselling soon after we had our son Freddie. And it wasn't because we were on the brink of divorce or that, maybe there were moments that felt a little bit like that. But it was more just because we were like, okay, wow, this has like fundamentally changed our relationship. What can we do to keep it as strong as possible into the future? And I think anything that's really worthwhile that having, like a good solid relationship, like your health, right? Your relationship with food, they all require work. And often that work is deeply uncomfortable. I don't know if you've ever been to relationship counselling. It's hard. You have to really look at yourself and take responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a one-way street. Like you have to, you're going to get asked very uncomfy questions and you're going to have to be very honest about them because if you don't, then we've got the other person sitting in the room with you, firstly. So they're not going to let anything slide. It's not like a one-on-one with a psychologist. Like you have that interaction. You need to, be open and clear and look inward because, it takes two to tango. And I think not having the focus and like when you say work as well, like we're using words like work, boring, stable, like that, like there's a theme, right? But when you look at it, it's sort of like, well, work, what's the work? It's the being cognizant of what the other person needs, being cognizant of what you need. And that takes a lot of brain power. So it's not like it's work, but it's productive and it's for the longevity of your relationship and your own mental health. Because if you have understanding in each other and in those situations where you actually have a third person in the room to be the mirror that's like, hey, this is what's going on with both of you. And then like feeling validated, like, oh, okay, so I wasn't crazy about that. Or, okay, like I did need that from you or whatever the situation might be. Like it's good to kind of open that up. And stable is sort of like, oh, are we an old married couple? Like, is this, and then leads to the word boring, but it's not, sometimes I refer to things, in my life as boring or like, and it might often be when it's sort of like if me and the kids are at home and we're just sort of like, we're not doing anything. We're just like, they might be playing or they might eat some food or we might go outside for a bit or whatever. But I find myself like grabbing my phone a lot or I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm bored. But like, is that bored? Like, is that's stable? They're happy. They're safe. So am I. it's a privilege to be, with them in these moments, and so I'm constantly trying to realign my thinking to just taking in the smaller moments as, yeah, like you said, like stable moments and consistency. Like, and maybe as a parent, and you can relate to this, Ashley, I'm sure, like you sort of always on standby for like the next drama anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
who's going to fall over and hurt themselves next, or who's going to like scream for something, when's the next tantrum coming, like kind of always on that sort of standby. And that's that piece of drama that we have,
Yeah.
like whether we're looking for it or we're not looking for it, maybe we're subconsciously also waiting for it. And that could be in also the case of relationship, and also in the case of nutrition, health, and general well-being, is like we're sort of waiting for the something's going to go wrong, like that fear of loss or that anxiety that creeps up.
A lot of what you're talking about there is peace, like feeling peace and feeling content. And I think sometimes boredom and contentment, I think, are almost like two sides of the same coin at some time.
Yeah.
Because it's giving you a bit of like peace. And I think we can find magic in those everyday moments. And like, I do think there's a bit of responsibility on us to be able to romanticize those moments in our life. Like, I love sometimes having a moment to like watch a movie with Freddie on the couch. And like, that is, we're sitting there not doing anything. It's kind of boring, but like I'm there with him. We're both happy. There's peace. Like that is happiness, really.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of happiness. It's not that we're on holidays at Disneyland, like these massive highs. It's just like, this is really filling my cup and making me feel content. And I think recognizing those moments is important. I think I've heard them called glimmers before, I think, where people like look for these kind of like little sparkly moments in the day, even if they're quite mundane, to kind of like hold on to, because I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm feeling bored, I'm feeling stressed, kind of like seeing the negative, because as a parent, as you said, there's always these kind of like fires that we're putting out, directions that we're pulled in. So those moments when you're like, oh, everything's just really stable and lovely, kind of recognizing that and appreciating it, because, it doesn't always come along that easy.
No, and that could be interrupted and changed at any moment. It's sort of that fight or flight kind of feeling. And yeah, I love that. Like looking for the glimmers in the day, like looking for those moments that are, that, like you said, they might be mundane. They might be, there's not much happening, but that's okay. And it's that those are the peaceful moments that we should reassure ourselves on, that it's okay to like feel that way. But I love that as well. Like you said, boredom and what did you say? Boredom and contentment are like two sides of the same coin. I think it's totally how you view it. And right, one of those is positive and one of those is slightly more negative. Like boredom seems negative, contentment is positive. So it's like, how are you looking at that? I love that. Yes.
I also think sometimes people, like, body image can almost be the same, in that I think we can have like this really negative side of it, and we have this vision of how we should feel, and it should be like, I want to feel the best I've ever felt. I want to be like, can't wait to get my bikini on, like feeling amazing. Sure, but the absence of not feeling bad about your body and just feeling good and okay and happy with where you're at, that is so powerful. I think people underestimate how powerful that is. Like, you don't need to swing between, oh, I feel terrible about myself, or I'm super fit and feeling incredible. Somewhere in the middle is okay and quite good, maybe underrated.
Well, exactly. And like you have here, boring isn't bad. Boring equals stable. Stable equals consistent, and consistent equals results, which, that couldn't be more true. And there's so many, it is totally dependent on the lens that you look at it through. Like it all comes down to you and what your view is. But yeah, not needing to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to feel the best I've ever felt in my bikini, and I'm going to, like, there's somewhere in the middle there that's and then also the other end, which is like completely just shaming yourself, like, oh my God, this is the worst I've ever looked and felt, I'm not worthy. There's nicely there in the middle that, I'm progress. Every day is progress. And, every day doesn't need to be perfect. I don't need to be perfect, and trying to find those glimmers in, maybe your own thoughts as well as, the actual situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you said as well, to close that piece off as well, if life feels boring right now, maybe it's proof that you're building something strong And that's pretty damn exciting.
It is, right? Like sometimes I think we talk a lot to clients about like having a really strong foundation. We're talking about feeling kind of just comfortable in your body. I think another way to think about that is like what is having that really strong, consistent foundation able to support you doing? Like if you can then participate in these really special things that you really enjoy and you kind of don't have to think about it. Like, I had a client who was going on holidays with her family and she came back and she was like, I went into the ocean in my swimmers with my daughter and it was amazing. I didn't think I would be able to do that. And it's like, she wasn't parading around in her bikini, like, it wasn't the star of the show. It was just like something that enabled her to participate in something that had so much more meaning than that.
Yes. Like, yeah, it was a bigger picture thing. It was about the way she felt. It wasn't
Yes.
necessarily about the way that she looked. I mean, I'm sure that had something to do with it, but like she felt within herself that was a lovely moment and a lovely experience, and she felt confident and, happy to share. And yeah, like you said, not parading around. We watched the movie recently called I Feel Pretty. It's got a
I love that film.
yeah, same. I remember I sat halfway through it. I turned to Jake and I was like, "Oh, that's so nice. It's about how it's important the way that you see yourself, not the way that you think others see." I was like, "What a lovely message!" I thought, "Oh my god, my pregnancy hormones are going crazy on me." But it was so true. It was like the stories that we tell ourselves that we're not good enough or we're not how we, imagine if we all looked at ourselves in that way and how our confidence would just, grow and be more, prevalent, I guess, rather than all the self-doubt and things like that. But I'm interested to know, Ash, from your perspective and like, what is some advice that you might give? Like, do you have clients or situations, like even in friendships or other relationships that you see kind of these extreme behaviors and then you can obviously kind of spot it from a mile away? Like, what's the type of advice would you use to kind of help someone sort of rein it in a little bit, or like go on a different, like, what are the key things that you would provide them with to think differently?
I think it's really easy, especially we're very much like conditioned to think things should be like showy and sexy and fun and exciting all the time. And I think in that environment, it's really easy to get distracted from the things that really count. So I will often meet women who feel like they're putting so much energy and time towards trying to, often it's lose fat, but it might be just work on their health or their performance or whatever the case may be. And they're like, I'm not seeing the results that I want. And it's because we're neglecting the very foundational things, the very consistent, boring things that actually move the needle. And so a lot of what I do with my clients is just bringing their attention back to the things that matter. So what was your energy intake like for the day? Is it appropriate for your activity levels and your goals? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you consistently moving your body? Those really are the things that matter for most people's health goals. And we also probably look at like fruit and vegetables and nutrient intake and that sort of thing. But it's not the supplements. It's not there's all of these like fatty workouts that are like, oh, to lose fat, you have to do 30 minutes on a stair climber at level this and that, like these really prescriptive things. And I think people see that and they're like, oh, that woman has an amazing body. I'm going to do what she does. And that's going to get me to where I want to be. And it's like, no, let's pull it back. Like, are you even exercising at the moment? What's your daily step count like? Are you sitting at a desk all day? Those things are probably what we'd look at first. And so, really focusing on what am I trying to achieve and where is my energy best invested? In our business, No Nonsense Nutrition and Fitness, we talk about high ROI nutrition, which is the highest return on investment, because a lot of people that we want to work with, that we do work with, don't have a lot of energy or time to kind of designate to these things. Like, we're busy, we're professionals, we've got kids, there's a lot going on, life's full. So we don't want you kind of pouring heaps of energy into these things that are going to give you a really small return, like the kind of like 1% things. We want to be working on what are the things that are going to actually get you to where you want to be with the biggest sort of bang for buck in terms of what you're investing into that. A really good example of this is like training. So, sometimes people say, oh, if I want to grow muscle, I should be doing like really high volume training. So getting to the gym like many times a week, training, say you want to get big glutes, like doing lots of training for that. But actually, when we look at the research, we can see that if you're doing like really good quality training, you can get like a good 2/3 of the results in sort of 1 to 10 sets per muscle group 1 to 4 sets per muscle group as opposed to 10 plus. So it's kind of, and we see the same thing with step count. Like often we get, the same benefits that we would get at 10 to 12,000 steps that you would get from 20,000 steps. So at what point do the benefits start trailing off for the energy that you're investing? Let's focus on those things. Yeah, often it's just really looking at those foundational things. There was another Instagram post I did recently where I had one of Freddie's little wooden cakes that he loves, like a birthday cake. And I was talking about how, let's focus on the actual cake, which again is like calorie intake, protein, fiber, movement, sleep, stress management, those sort of things. Anything else is like the frosting or the sprinkles, right? So it looks pretty. It's nice to have if you've got the extra time, but if there wasn't actually a cake there, it's the whole thing's falling flat. It doesn't really count. Yeah, just really focusing in on the maybe boring, consistent foundational things.
Yeah, the fundamentals. I love that analogy, the cake analogy. That's a really good visual. It's like, yeah, well, without the base of the cake. And the fact that you're like probably starting to teach some of those things to Freddie as well, I think is phenomenal. And like, that's a leaf we should all take in, let's talk to our 3-year-olds about this. Like, let's talk to them about, what makes up their day and what makes up their food. And, they see it on repeat anyway if we're putting out fruit plates and, or food plates, with fruit and different things on them to the best of our knowledge. But yeah, that visual of, yeah, without it. And you said something that like nice to have. There's so many things that are like a nice to have. It's nice to have a Pilates membership, and it's nice to have time to go and do 20,000 steps on a Sunday once a month, or whatever those things are that are nice to have. You can still do them, but taking a step back and looking at what are those, foundational, fundamental things that you can be doing all the time. I actually found it kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but I found it kind of addictive. Like when I was working with you, Ash, and I was tracking, and I've spoken about this before, when I'm tracking my food and I'm tracking my intake and looking at, what's going in, what's going out, like, in terms of like burning energy and things like that. And I found I was wanting to do it all the time because I was genuinely interested. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I do eat, this amount of raspberries, if I do eat this amount of Jats biscuits, or if I do, eat this amount of meat, or whatever the combination of that particular day was, I felt like I was learning so much, but also like really wanting to input that information into the app to, learn about what does my day actually look like in terms of energy intake. And if I can get, I try and like, I don't think I could say I ever hit like a perfect day, but, in terms of intake and output, but I feel like I was getting the gist, like I was getting the right. And because I was consistent in the tracking, I was able to sort of, back myself and go, oh no, you did well today. Like, or if I did get grilled or I got, something else, McDonald's or whatever, that I would be at least conscious of that nice to have item that didn't have to completely throw me off the rails, and I could still come back to the baseline of my stable, consistent plan that made me, I had the structure, so I had the freedom, the freedom in headspace to, not worry about these things so much and actually just try and work on building those foundations. And I have to say, like, and the only reason we paused our training together was because I was coming up to the end of my pregnancy. So, the gloves were kind of off a bit, but I found my intuitive eating to still be pretty good. I haven't gone back to leaning towards snacks that, are not of necessarily high nutritional value. Like I'm still buying the same things pretty much. Like I'm still picking the last bit of kiwi fruit off the kids' plate if they didn't eat it. Like
we love kiwi.
Yeah.
That's so good. But I think you've touched on a really good point, which is like that foundation actually serves you through your whole life, right? Because those foundational things that are important now, they are also going to be the foundational things when you're 70. And so if you can nail them now, they're going to carry you through periods of disruption, and you'll probably even find like, adjusting to something new in your life, like a new baby. You'll have those habits in place that'll kind of guide you. Going on holiday, you'll probably still have some of those foundational habits. Like they really are something that stay with you for life. And I think you kind of, we're talking about tracking, and you can kind of like see the results, right? Like, there's some level of certainty that you are making an impact. And that's really addictive. Like once you know that that's happening, you're like, okay, great, I've set my foundation. If I can carry that through, that's going to serve me really well. And, you talked about never hitting your perfect day or your perfect target. That's fine. We love that, because I would take 7 days of hitting your target at like 70% over 100% perfect day, and then everything else just being a free-for-all, or just completely, off plan, like not paying attention to anything, which is actually what so many people do in that kind of traditional view that people have of dieting, where it's a short-term focus and it might be focused on more of the frosting and more of the sprinkles. It doesn't give you the results that kind of provide that motivation, but it also just feels like you're spinning your wheels for no benefit. And it's, again, that like perfection mindset where I have to be doing X, Y, Z to be feeling good about my nutrition and fitness. And it's like, well, I mean, really, we want something that's a bit more flexible and can kind of stay with you through different periods of your life, rather than relying on 100% perfection, because certainly as a parent, that goes out the window, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, perfection is not something I seek frequently because I
It's a
think,
bit of a joke now, isn't it? You're
yeah,
like, "Ha."
or I think I've got to I really get a lot of joy in like making like a beautiful food plate for the kids. So I'm like, oh my God, look at this. It's so beautiful. And I give it to them. And then my son's like throwing half his on the floor, and my daughter won't eat her bit. I'm like scavenging around like, oh, don't waste berries. Like, and then I might eat
Yes.
some, and I'm like, oh, my perfect plate. I should have taken a picture, and maybe I'll just look at it instead of trying to create it at every moment. But
Yeah, story of my life. I feel like I put up photos on Instagram of things that I feed Freddie, and people are like, oh my God, like, can I be your child? Like, this looks amazing. And I'm like, can you? Because my child didn't eat any of that. So I'd love some gratitude.
yeah.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Oh, so great. And I knew that this would be the part of parenthood that I would struggle with the most. So I obviously like find ways around it. I'm like, hey, well, don't make the perfect plate then. Just maybe ask and see what they feel like, or get them to point in the cupboard and then just get them what they want, or don't have snacks out all the time. Like, let them play and get a bit hungry, and then they'll come in, they might appreciate it more. Like, but I just knew, I was like, I'm going to make all this beautiful food, and they're going to like, what if they throw it? What if they don't like it? Like, I'm just going to be so terribly insulted. But anyway, you learn around it, right?
Yeah, I feel like you adjust your expectations. Like
Yes.
you serve it to them knowing it's probably going to come back to you much the same as you served it. And you have to be okay with that, because otherwise you're going to be sad all the time, right?
That's it. Managing your own expectations. This is another very key point to all of this that we're speaking about.
Yes. Feel like we covered a lot of ground today. It was good.
That was a good one. I like that. I like I like the energy. I like the different and how it all like intertwines, right? Like these principles can be applied to so many things. Like obviously your expertise and your professional, background and what you do every day is in nutrition, health and fitness. Like, but so many of the fundamentals that you use and you apply, in your daily professional life can be applied to your personal life, to your relationship with your child, like, to your friends, your family, like, it really does all kind of weave in together. So I think, thank you for shedding a different light on it. And hopefully that provokes some different thinking from some of our listeners.
Yes. No, it was great. It was lovely. Thank you so much, as always.
Pleasure. Well, we'll leave it there, ladies, for this particular episode with Ash Kuhn. But Ash, maybe you want to do a little wrap up on your business and a little shout out again, just to remind our listeners where to find you.
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Nutrition by Ashleigh. That is probably the best place to kind of get to know me and my content and what I'm about. But I work with women just like Katey, lots of different women about nutrition and a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today in terms of practically what to eat. And we also do training plans for people, but also about these mindset shifts and how to navigate this stuff through your actual life. Because as we've discussed today, it can be complex and an interesting journey. So that's what I work with women on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ash, and really, really appreciate your insights and knowledge as always. Please follow Ash on Instagram and, of course, follow the wing. And we will catch you on the next episode sometime soon. Thanks, ladies. Bye-bye.
Enjoyed the episode? Hit follow and check out _wingpod Oz on Instagram for a dose of wisdom getting you on the right path to success.